When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
Still looking for a natural way to relieve aches and discomfort? Introducing Cornbread Hemp CBD Gummies. Cornbread Hemp CBD Gummies are made to help you feel better, whether it's stress, discomfort, or just needing a little relaxation. They only use the best part of the hemp plant, the flower, for the purest and most potent CBD. Right now, ICYMI listeners can save 30% on their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/ICYMI and use code ICYMI at checkout.
Hey, I'm Candice Lim.
And I'm Kate Lindsay. And you're listening to ICYMI.
In case you missed it.
Slate's podcast about internet culture. And if you are listening to this, then I'm either pleased or sorry to say that you were not raptured. Candice, did you see, were you on Rapture Talk?
Man, it sucks because I didn't have this in my calendar. I didn't get the Cal invite, but I'm not gonna lie to you, would have been fine with it.
I know. Imagine not hearing about Rapture Talk and then you were raptured yesterday. I mean, that how shocking would it have been? But essentially what happened to me is I open up TikTok and I hear the world is ending or that the rapture's happening. And I'm seeing videos from evangelical content creators giving like rapture tips.
Totally.
Like, when you're being raptured up into the air, don't look down.
Oh.
'Cause I don't know, maybe that's scary.
Wow.
Again, not applicable. We're still here.
Yeah.
But I looked into this a little bit more, and I guess it just like originated in South Africa.
Great.
But at like a company where a kind of rogue employee went off and like emailed everyone and was like, by the way, the rapture's coming. So like it kind of, it wasn't like, maybe he was a prophet, but it's not like someone stood at the top of a cliff and sort of announced this to the world. Like, this was kind of a weird moment that I think some people think that what happened with Charlie Kirk,
Totally.
We're in a very vulnerable time. Everyone's just decided, you know what? The reason everything's feeling like this, rapture imminent.
I mean, look, I have friends who tell me there's a full moon tonight. Everyone stay inside. And guess what? I believe them in solidarity, but let's just be honest.
Right.
It's just a moon. It's just a rapture. And once again, we are.
It's just
here.
a rapture,
It's
you
just
guys.
a rapture. But here's the thing. We should have known the end was nigh. Because I think the real rapture is that not a rapture, but instead a rebirth. A second coming.
A resurrection.
A resurrection of one person named Ned Fulmer. Okay, Ned Fulmer, you know him, wife guy, you know him, former Try guy. He has finally reemerged from cancellation. And I just want to give a little reminder, but how can you forget, that in 2022, Ned Fulmer, he was caught having an affair with one of his employees at the Try Guys. Not one of the Try Guys, but an employee who worked for him.
But there's fan fiction of that.
Hey, now, this was probably the biggest internet story of that year because his whole thing was he created this ecosystem of podcasts and videos and cookbooks that revolved around his marriage to his wife, Ariel. He cheats on her, and to see him just not be the best wife guy really made their fans, including myself, feel betrayed. And I think that the Try Guys who have continued making videos, they're still dealing with the aftermath of it. But I have to say, for me, it was not so much a question of if, but like, when will Ned Fulmer pop up on my SEO again? And guess what? It happened. It happened.
Yeah, so he comes back. He has a podcast. It's called Rock Bottom. And the idea is that he is interviewing people who have hit rock bottom, who've been canceled. And Candice, you and I both clocked, this sounds exactly like Prince Harry's hypothetical never actually realized podcast that was supposed to interview sociopaths.
Yep.
And it's just like, how do you get someone to be on that podcast? You email them being like, hey, everyone hates you. Come on my podcast.
Exactly. You just hit rock bottom. Come on the pod. And it's just kind of like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
But really, all of this was kind of a vehicle for the first episode, which features not someone who was canceled or hit rock bottom, but the wife in question, Ariel, who was the woman who was cheated on and who we haven't heard from throughout this entire saga. And so I don't know if people were waiting with bated breath necessarily because it's like, why is he in it? But people were definitely interested in what she had to say. And the big reveal is that they have not been together for some time now. Like they pretty much broke up after the scandal happened. Everyone is Team Ariel. We Team Ariel out here still. And it is so clear in the episode, I've only consumed it through clips, that she despises that man. I mean, they are working together, co-parenting, all doing this for the sake of their children. But I mean, he does not come across any more likable in this podcast. And Ariel, God bless her, has no intentions of making him look likable. Like it is a really awkward conversation. But at least she seems to be thriving in the sense that we're all on her side. I don't think Ned has to try a little bit harder to win us over.
Yeah, I tried so hard not to watch the original video on YouTube, right? Because I don't want to give Ned any of my views. I don't want him to give me any of my sponsorship AdSense dollars. So I, too, was consuming it only on TikTok. I loved going on Reddit and seeing people do, like, line by line, like, recaps of what happened. And I think what really is getting people in kind of a triumphant way is that Ariel very out loud was like, I don't forgive you.
Yeah.
I might never will. And I think we love it.
People ask me, like, do you forgive Ned for what he did? And I mean, the answer is no, absolutely not.
And I think that is the energy we need, especially when we're about to be raptured. That is the energy we need.
I know, but what is so weird about this is that Try Guy news, Rapture news, all of this bubbled up onto my For You page, but there was one side of the internet that made waves even bigger than this one.
Exactly. And that particular honor goes to the knitting community, okay? Online knitters. They have been in an uproar this week, and they are mad at vlogbrother Hank Green. After the break, we'll find out why hell hath no fury like a knitter scorned. This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks Fifth Avenue makes it easy to get creative with your personal style and find the best arrivals for fall. I love going through Saks.com because it is so easy to find new arrivals from my favorite designers, and I get a lot of inspiration for my personal style. With fall coming up, I think it's time for reinvention. I think it's time for a wardrobe refresh. So I've been going on Saks.com because I have my eye on a few Jenny Kane sweaters, and thank God they have them all in stock. But that's my experience with Saks.com. There's so much more to explore based on your personal style and what you're looking for. So this fall, whether you're trying out the latest fashion trends or curating a closet that stands the test of time, Saks has you covered. Whether it's a date night, a vacation, a special occasion, or just lounging in style, Saks helps you find the perfect look for every occasion. If you want shopping to be fun and easy, then head to Saks Fifth Avenue for inspiring ways to elevate your personal style every day. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I love the quality of Mint Mobile's wireless service in comparison to my old provider. I save so much thanks to Mint Mobile on a monthly basis, and I take so many calls from work to the gym to the beach, and guess what? Those calls never drop. So, ditch overpriced wireless and their jaw-dropping monthly bills, unexpected overages, and hidden fees. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/ICYMI. That's mintmobile.com/ICYMI. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 per month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Everyone can use a little help to shape the direction of their lives, from fitness routines to mental resilience or navigating personal goals to tackling burnout. That's what the Life Kit podcast from NPR is here to do. If you're looking to move with more intention or just need thoughtful guidance on living better, Life Kit delivers strategies to help you make meaningful, sustainable change. Life Kit offers real stories, relevant insights, and clear takeaways to help you meet those large and small decision-making moments with confidence and clarity. Trusted voices and expert advice can help take you to the next step, however big or small. Listen to Life Kit to hear thoughtful conversations that unpack the emotional and practical side of personal wellness, along with actionable guidance you can actually use. No fluff, no judgment. Get help tackling common issues like relationships, finances, parenting, and your career. Then walk away with a game plan you can implement right away. Life Kit isn't just another podcast about self-improvement. It's about understanding how to live a little better starting now. Listen now to the Life Kit podcast from NPR.
And we're back. And something that it took both of us way too long to realize, Candice, is that we are both knitters, crocheters, fiber artistes. What is your knitting lore?
Yeah, and I also want to loop in producer Vic onto this. Okay, Vic hops on the riverside, crocheting in hand. That's right, the triangle. So, yeah, my knitting lore is that I picked it up during the pandemic. My family actually has a history of being very hands-on with their crafts. My grandparents used to kind of be in the ceramics world. My mom apparently didn't tell me this, also was a crocheter until one day, and she didn't tell me this until one day I was like, "Hey mom, have you seen this thing called crocheting?" And she's like, "Let me try it." 20 loops in 2 seconds. And I'm like, are you serious?
Oh,
right
she
now?
hustled you.
She hustled
You were
me.
hustled.
But I love it. I did it because I wanted something tactile to do while watching television, getting off my phone. And I didn't really think too much about the community of it. But I will say there is something very satisfying about watching unspooled yarn or going to Michael's and touching yarn for $3. It is very fun and I still do it. What is your knitting lore, Kate?
Yes. So I learned how to knit in college. I literally took a class at the craft center.
Nice.
And it was every week. And I learned through that. I then literally did a knitting course over the summer at a local yarn store where I grew up, which was really intense. I learned lots of little stitches. You know, famously after college, I worked at a yarn store. And so I've just been knitting on and off throughout my entire kind of adult life. And I actually fell off a little bit during the pandemic. I don't know what I was doing. I guess just scrolling. But it was a few years ago. I think what had happened was I had started so many projects, gotten halfway through, lost interest, and then I just had all these halfway done projects and I didn't even know where to begin to pick them up. And so I remember I spent one afternoon, I frogged is the term, but I basically undid everything. I rewound the yarn back up and basically created a huge stash for myself. And I was knitting from that for a while, but now we're back in buying really expensive yarn. I'm like, oh, I could make this sweater that's $80. Why don't I make it for 2 months and $100?
That's right.
But not only are we both knitters, we are both nerd fighters, which is the term for fans of the Vlogbrothers, which is a long-running internet duo. They started on YouTube. It's John and Hank Green, John Green being the author. Hank Green also an author now, but their kind of whole thing is they make videos back and forth addressed to each other. It started as a way to stay in touch. Now they built this whole community. And so it's interesting. We are both knitters. We are both nerd fighters. And this past week has been particularly weird for those two groups because knitters and nerd fighters and knitting nerd fighters, we're all at war.
And here is where our Venn diagram has a panic attack, okay? Basically 2 weeks ago, Hank, he hosts a show. It's called SciShow. I used to watch it all the time in high school. It's a 10-minute video. They do things like explain fun concepts about Earth and other things. Educational, right? He posts this video. It's called Physicists Don't Understand Why Knitting Works. And the whole point is to kind of talk about how knitting techniques are inspiring physicists to make new materials, which is kind of cool. There's an intersection. Maybe we should take a listen, play a clip to see how this sounds.
One of the oldest knit objects in the world is a sock that's about 800 years old. It was a simple thing.
All right, and we stop there because this already, 5 seconds in, internet, keyboards on. Tell us why, Kate.
He described knitting a sock as simple, where, I mean, have you ever knit a sock, Candice?
No, see, this is actually where I was like, you know what? Let's get them. Because I have to say, I've only crocheted blankets, rectangles, the curve, the sock.
Yeah, knitting a sock. So I've knit a few pairs of socks before, and I would say it is one of the, like, that is, you knit the scarves, and then you knit a hat.
Right.
And then, I mean, I would knit a sweater before. I would tell someone to knit a sweater before I told them to try knitting a sock in terms of, like, how you slowly level up. Because a sock is really thin yarn. It's really finicky stitches. You have to turn at the heel. You have to, like, completely change the direction.
It has to be tight because you don't want air getting into your toes.
Right. It's a really difficult garment to make. And so, you know, immediately it being called simple, people were on alert. And there are a lot of little nitpicky issues that people have with this video throughout. But the crux of the backlash, what inspired it, happens in this clip right here.
Soon, knitted materials might not just be keeping us warm, but also protecting packages, absorbing noise, and helping doctors monitor their patients' bodies. And what all this goes to show is that modern science isn't the only way of developing sophisticated technology. Knitting evolved purely through intuition and trial and error, but those knit patterns that emerged from generations of knitters tipped off scientists that there might be something useful here. In the end, we have ancient skills and modern science working together to create something that neither could have done alone.
So first, before I ask you about this, Candice, I just want to say, if there was anyone else who listened to that and was like, I don't understand the problem.
Yeah.
I think I'm too exhausted by everything else in the world because this did not flag to me. But if you're listening with a critical ear, Candice, what do you make of that characterization of knitting and physics?
I mean, I have to say it. I watched this 10-minute video and I was so bored. And but this is my way of saying I found it quite inoffensive. Because I was just like, here we go, nerd going off about history. Continue, I'm going to go heat up some food. Like, that's really what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the really interesting intersection we live in of, like, you know, we are always trying to understand why people are mad versus condemning them for being mad. So I'm trying really hard to step into the shoes of those who are mad. When I hear this clip of Hank, I'm not going to say he was being condescending. I think maybe what it is there is kind of this part where he says, like, you know, knitting had existed for so long and then scientists found it useful and then that became worth exploring. And I could see a little bit of misogyny, a little bit of talking down, a little bit of like, oh, that's not work, that's not labor, that's your craft. But if it can help me save, you know, lives, then yeah, we'll think about it. And maybe there's a dismissiveness to it.
Yeah, I think it's sort of drawing a binary that doesn't need to exist between like knitting and science.
Yeah.
Where it was like, oh, this cozy little craft, once scientists discovered it, they realized it's useful.
Right.
And it's like the argument really is like, it was always useful.
It's not a waste of time. It's not frivolous.
Right. This is just a new application. They didn't discover anything that knitters didn't already know. And so if you take a look at the comments on that video, you see a lot of people reacting that way. I mean, one of the comments reads, I've never seen someone marvel so much at the wonders of knitting while belittling it so much. I mean, they take issue particularly with him using the term like intuition and trial and error and not just calling it science. And TikTok in general was particularly shitposty about this whole thing. Here is a video that a knitter posted.
Oh no, my knitting's curling inward. If only I had a big, strong scientist to explain to me why this is happening and how I can fix it.
So what is being shown in that video is basically a panel of something knitted in what is known as stockinette stitch, which is like a very basic pattern. Yeah. And something about stockinette that is frustrating is that if you don't add any type of stitching that if you don't work with stitches in a way that can counteract this, stockinette on its own curls inward and is so frustrating because you can knit this like really wide scarf, really long wide scarf, but if you don't secure the edges with a different type of stitch, it'll just curl into one big like tube and it looks really weird. And I ran into that a bunch as a novice knitter. And now I know better through, of course, my women's intuition. There were also reactions on YouTube, like knitters like Christine Vika made detailed response videos, and she's also a scientist, and so we can kind of use her video to help illuminate people's frustrations a bit. And so let's start with kind of the first key part of this that people are taking issue with, which is that the craft in general is kind of being belittled. Let's play what she has to say about this.
Crafts and technology have always been closely intertwined and essential to human development. So much so that many of the words and expression of our language today come from textile craft terms. Many parts of the earth would be too inhospitable if not for the invention of spinning and the various technologies that turn spun thread into wearable fabrics that can protect us from the forces of nature.
And so I think the underlying thing that she's communicating here is that, yes, this is sort of one instance where, in this case, physicists have discovered that knitting techniques can be used to create other materials. But knitting and textile arts have been the basis for so many technological innovations. And like, it's actually not that like crazy that the two have this kind of relationship.
Yeah. I think what's really funny about YouTube culture is that, first off, there are many reaction videos to Hank's original video. His video is 10 minutes long. This one we just played 20 minutes. I'm seeing 32-minute videos.
Mm-hmm.
People love to pop off on YouTube in a way that they can't really do on TikTok just because they have more time, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of those reaction videos where she's playing like 5 seconds, stop, comment. And it's like, it is funny, it's entertaining.
Yeah.
Now, when I watched her video, I wanted to talk a little bit about the tone of it, because I would not say that she is speaking about Hank's video with like derision, but there is a bit of kind of like fact-checking, skepticism, a little bit of like, I could have made this video better than you, or like, you needed to do more research, mama, like stuff like that. And I think
let's research Mama Hank.
Exactly. And I do think maybe like one misconstrued part of SciShow, the show that Hank makes, is that Hank and John Green's platform is really supposed to be this place where you want to know a little about a lot. So you're not supposed to be an expert. You're not supposed to dive into these 40-minute video essays. These are kind of surfacey. And I think the difficulty is when you try to enter the arena of something like knitting, something that has this very like hyper protective, hyper vigilant vocal minority, one of these types of online communities. I wonder if that community sees a Hank Green, no matter how good faith they approach this, as like an outsider, someone who is kind of trying to like get you, but like not really. And that sucks, because that's where the rub is, right? Like, I do believe that Hank and the team who made this video really just wanted to talk about knitting because it's fun and cool. However, that does not mean that they control the reaction, and those reactions are becoming 32-minute fact-check videos.
Yeah, and also you pointed this out, and I think it's so true. Like, Hank especially is known for like knowing things. And so I almost wonder if there's an element of like delight or a thrill to be like, wait, he got this wrong.
Maybe.
I know more than Hank Green about something. Let me make, again, a 30-minute video.
Yeah.
But that is not the only thing people are frustrated with, because overall they're taking issue with, like, you know, nothing specific is said, but a sort of misogynistic tone. And that might sound crazy as an accusation against Hank Green, but it's the way that women's work is so often belittled. And then, you know, it's made meaningful when men, quote unquote, discover it and explain it. And it feels like that's what this SciShow video is feeding into a little bit. And Christine had some thoughts about this too that we can hear.
Sorry to talk about the elephant in the room, but you are vastly underestimating and sadly falling into the fallacy of undervaluing the incredible skills and experience of often generations of, traditionally, women, knitters and crafters with just this one paragraph. Although some trial and error is of course at play when inventing new technology, and yes, knitting is a human technology, a lot of what comes after is skill and experience.
Yeah, I also definitely perked up at this point as well, because I'm sure a lot of knitters walked into Hank's video being like, all right, here we go. A man talking about women's activities. What's he going to say? Is he going to be condescending? Is he going to talk down to knitters? And I don't think he really went that far, but I can understand people taking crumbs or maybe little words that he said and going that way. Now, I think the fear is valid. As a women's studies minor, they teach us to do this, to look at every piece of culture with the lens of like basically preparing for misogyny to enter the space. However, I have to say, I just don't think the video that Hank posted, I just don't think it really has that energy. Therefore, I kind of have to wonder, is it possible that these knitters, these reaction YouTubers, is it possible that they actually have an issue with something else that does not have to do with Hank? It's just that Hank is the representation, the image of their ire,
Well, I want to pause here for a moment because, Candice, I have to confess, this is all giving me PTSD. I am among the select few who has also accidentally pissed off the knitting community, and this didn't happen that long ago. When we come back, how I got roped into an online knitting scandal and why this online community in particular keeps getting tangled in controversies.
So good, so good, so good.
New fall arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Vince, Kurt Geiger London, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club at Nordstrom Rack to unlock exclusive discounts on your favorite brands. Shop new arrivals first and more. Plus, get an extra 5% off every Rack purchase with a Nordstrom credit card. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey there! If you love our podcast, then you should consider subscribing to Slate Plus to immediately unlock bonus episodes. You'll also access ad-free listening across all your favorite Slate podcasts, including bi-weekly bonus episodes of our show. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts by clicking Try Free at the top of our show page, or visit slate.com/ICYMI Plus to get access wherever you listen.
And we're back. And Kate, welcome to Rock Bottom with Ned Fulmer. Why were you canceled?
Ned, thank you for having me. So, listen, canceled is a strong word, but I actually wrote a piece for Slate recently about knitting, specifically how these tariffs will affect the knitting community because, while there are plenty of American yarn brands, most brands get their wool internationally because the U.S. wool business, I don't want to get into a whole timeline here, but the U.S. wool business is not equipped to handle, it's been in decline for the past 100 years. And so most yarn is purchased abroad, and now there's these extreme tariffs making yarn more expensive. Some yarn brands in general are like, no, we can't ship to the United States anymore. It's a clusterfuck, if I may. But I wanted to solicit the opinions of actual knitters who were being affected by this. And so I went to a little place online called R Knitting. This is a subreddit all about knitting. I spoke to some great people from there. I wrote the piece. I drop it in the subreddit. I'm like, thank you guys so much. Here's the piece. And, I was like, I'm excited. We've given voice to the voiceless, the knitters. But there was one thing that all of the community members clocked, and it was to do with the art. The art, listen, again, I didn't clock this either. I'm like, am I a fraud? But essentially, it was a picture of knitting needles and some fabric that had been knitted, but it was crochet stitches, not knitting stitches.
Yep.
They clocked it immediately, and not only were they clocking it, they were pissed off because a lot of them thought it must have been AI or they thought it was. And listen, we switched it. We switched it as soon as we realized. But I remember being like so shocked at the level of anger that immediately came at me when I was like, no, but God, because like, as a writer, the art is, you're not in charge of it. And so I was like, no, read the piece.
Right. And you're kind of one of them. Like, you may not be in the subreddit posting or a moderator, but you came into it from this place of like, I knit as well, and I just want to talk about this thing that we're all dealing with.
Right.
And all of a sudden it was very Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man of like, hold on a second.
Yeah, I was like, come on, no. Like, actually, let's, to me, it wasn't a huge deal, but for them it was. And so I'm seeing a lot of similarities here because outside of the larger accusations of sexism about this SciShow video, knitters are frustrated because so many little details were incorrect. Like the B-roll was showing things that they were saying one thing, but the B-roll was showing another. Like they would say that this is a stockinette stitch, but then they showed actually the back of a piece of stockinette knitting. They used a picture of a woven top when they were talking about a knitted top. And, use of the word simple, that came up a lot. They used knots to describe the stitches a lot, and people in the comments were saying, no, knitting isn't knots, it's loops.
Yeah.
And so it was little things like that people were also just really, from the get-go, 5 seconds in, hearing a sock is simple, like all these little mistakes added up.
Yeah, I think for me, the one that I noticed was when they were talking about purl stitches, they put like the word purl stitch in captions. They spelled stitch wrong. And from a grammar perspective, I was like, and they did it twice. I was like, hey, maybe just a little edit. But the thing is, even though I caught that, no part of me thought I need to go on Reddit. I need to make I need to make a TikTok video. I need to make a 32-minute response video about this. I just let it go,
Right. And this isn't to say that people who were frustrated by this had the wrong reaction. Right. But I think the question we have is, with this SciShow incident and then obviously my own personal trauma, the knitting community is clearly very, very protective about their craft. And I guess I want to know why that is, because it feels, it's what I think why it sticks out is because like, oh, knitting is like sweet and gentle. And then everyone is like, I have a gun. And I think that's a little bit of the thing that's off here. And I love it. And maybe that's one reason why is that knitting does have this reputation as like a grandma's hobby when actually it is like increasingly a craft enjoyed by every age and gender, but that also is, as we've seen, like very serious and the foundation for a lot of like technological advancement.
Yeah. I think there's definitely something going on here that is community specific, right? Because on top of what happened with you in your article, what's going on with Hank Green, my small dips into the subreddit knitting, there's so many, but every time I dip in there, I get out immediately. Because I'm just kind of like, ooh, like I don't know if I would want to hang out with you guys in a knitting circle in real life. And I think what the irony of it all is that knitting is a very personal activity. It's something that you can do, and a lot of people do in the comfort of their home by themselves. It's cozy. You would think it is drama-free. So why is there always drama? Why is someone always getting mad at someone? And I think maybe something I've been thinking about is the fact that knitting as a community, right? We don't really have we don't have the most famous knitter in the world, right? We don't have a Bobby Fischer of chess. That's not us. Therefore, with no figurehead, I think the community tends to congregate around or swarm on our enemies instead of those supposed leaders or uplifters or people who are supposed to accurately represent the community, which does feed into this thing that you and Hank, I'm going to put you in the same group, by the way, you and Hank
we're the same.
are dealing with together, which is when someone attempts to legitimize or talk about the community, there is this really, really, really hard desire to get it right. And the second you get something wrong, it's kind of like the whole tower just falls apart. And it's like, can't win.
Yeah. The knitting community is very, very passionate. And so but also it's still somewhat of a niche hobby.
Sure.
And it's not often the subject of a video or an internet controversy. And so I think there's an element of being like, oh my gosh, the thing I love to do that, I have to go on Reddit to find a community for, now it's being talked about on this platform, and that's really exciting. And then you open it up and like 5 seconds in, they're calling socks simple and they're spelling stitch wrong. And it's like, okay, those are rookie errors for anyone within the community. And so I get how it feels like whoever put this together did not do their due diligence, did not take the community seriously, which I think is a big issue. But another thing we should point out is that the online knitting community, there's a crucial word in there. They're online. Yeah. They are, I won't go as far to say internet poisoned, but there's a whole knitting community that exists and existed long before the internet. So extremely online knitters, I mean, they're more so versed in this idea of, congregating around a trending moment or, discussion, discourse. Like, we're seeing a very vocal sect of the knitting community here. And they're doing what they do best, which is, knit on their downtime and then get online and talk about knitting. And this is what is happening in the knitting community right now. So, of course, they're going to throw in their 2 cents.
Yeah. I think also they're rabid. They're very passionate. And the thing is, I have to believe that this very vocal minority, they do not represent everyone. Right? They don't represent you and me and our opinions all the time. However, they are the only ones talking. Therefore, they take up the oxygen. Therefore, from an outside perspective, it almost seems like they're speaking for us when really, I really think that because knitting is so personal, they're talking about them. They're talking about their feelings. And I don't co-sign a lot of them. But I did kind of want to ask, like, do you feel like there has been different or maybe even like overlapping reactions between like, Hank's video on like the subreddit, the YouTube, the TikTok,
Well, yeah, it's interesting because when I was doing research about this, I was looking at the discourse that was on TikTok and YouTube and Reddit and seeing a lot of the same stuff. And then I was like, where I haven't checked? The actual social media platform that is for knitters. That's called Ravelry.
This is their letterbox.
Yes, their letterbox is their Goodreads. You basically use it to chart the progress of your projects that you're working on. You can like save projects you want to do. You can actually download and buy patterns through the website, and there are forums.
Yes.
So I went on over to the forums, and I assumed we were about to be like, I was like, oh, what we witnessed on Reddit, I'm sure that was child's play. Ravelry, they're about to be even angrier. Right. Like I can't wait to see. I find the thread about this on Ravelry, 2 pages. Wow. That's it. Wow. And half of the people are like, loved this video.
Oh my gosh.
And then a few people are coming in and being like, here are the inaccuracies. But it just goes to show like the community manifests differently in different places online. And on Ravelry, they by and large enjoyed the video. And that's great. And like neither is right and neither is wrong. I mean, it's just interesting to see how, depending on maybe where you spend time online and how you see your hobby, that you engage with this kind of stuff differently.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw in one more platform here, which is Discord. So basically, look, I'll say it. I am in a Discord knitting community. It's a very local group that I had to be invited to. I was on a wait list for months, Kate. I had to get a member to co-sign me like a country club. And it's exclusive because it is a BIPOC knitting group. We just want to be protective of our members and their identities. But I have to say, not the biggest fan of the Discord. I pop in there once a month and I immediately get out. I feel the same way about knitting subreddit just because my hot take is that I just feel like I need very little interaction with the community in order to maintain my relationship to knitting. Like I knit for me, I don't knit for them. Posting projects, that's really cute and I approve of it. My projects are once again blankets. So I have not much to say, not much to show, definitely no wisdom to share. But that's like the real interesting disconnect of like sometimes I really love an activity, but when I actually tap into the online community, I'm like, I don't want any part of this. I do not want to get involved,
Yeah, and that's fair enough because, I mean, any platform where knitters can gather, there were reactions. Right. And so, of course, SciShow had to respond. Hank had to respond. And so let's start with how SciShow responded because it was in the comments of the YouTube and they pinned the comment. And so we can go through they address a few points and I'll just like briefly say what they've addressed. So The person who writes the comment is someone named Jess. They say they're one of SciShow's producers, and they also say they're a knitter. And so one of the things that they clarify is every video SciShow makes is worked on by numerous people. The team who worked on this episode are tireless, skilled, and dedicated, but most of them aren't knitters. So some technical mistakes did make it through to posting. And so it's kind of, I think what they're saying there is some of the stuff you noticed, that was just by nature of a lot of hands are on this and not all the hands know about knitting. But, one of the things they add is in the same way that a missed yarn over doesn't make a garment unwearable, so too a mislabeled visual of reverse stockinette, something we mentioned, doesn't invalidate the trustworthiness and value of the science lessons in the video. And so that's sort of the statement on the little mistakes. Then they go ahead to address the sort of accusations of dumbing down knitting. They wrote, where we added caveats and simplifications, we weren't intending to alienate knitters or misrepresent the craft. Rather, we were intending to engage and invite non-knitters to learn about this craft that's got way more going on than they may have imagined. And so that's kind of illuminating too. They didn't necessarily make this video thinking it was going out to knitters. They thought it was going out to SciShow viewers.
Right.
And then they learned many SciShow viewers are knitters, which, by the way, just based on vibes, I could have told you
I know. That's something that actually makes me kind of sad, where I'm like, the people who watch SciShow are nerds. The people who knit, I'm going to self-clarify, nerd.
Right.
I thought the whole point of being a nerd was to fight the bigger enemy, the popular kids. What are we doing? Focus!
Right. I know. I can confidently say, and again, I'm part of this, not a single popular person is involved in this controversy on any side. On any side. And so then the last part that's addressed here by Jess is, I want to finally touch on the line at the end of the video that says knitting was developed via intuition, practice, trial, and error. The experienced knitter in me can see how that line leaves out the mathematical complexity and skill that knitting can employ. The hobbyist knitter in me is grateful that knitting doesn't have to be complex to be worthwhile. The SciComm producer in me knows that intuition, practice, trial, and error are exactly the way science happens, and it really can be as simple as that. That was a real mic drop for me because, again, and Candice and I are biased here. Maybe it's because our brains are just too smooth from having to consume and talk about so much. But this video never registered that much for me as a problem, even though now that we've dove into it, I can fully see why people took offense. But so for me, this explanation is good. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And I think everyone's on the same page. Everyone's on the same side. Are you satisfied with that, Candice?
I mean, I have to say, right, there are many things in this comment that show it was a real expert, someone who may indeed be on subreddits like r knitting, who wrote this. There are timestamps. I wouldn't say there are apologies, but there are definitely explanations with little quips that you and I would get. Now, the thing is, I unfortunately don't think people wanted to hear from a producer. They wanted to hear from Hank. And guess what Hank did? Respond with a TikTok. Let's play it.
Hello, it's Hank. I've read a lot of comments about knitting in the last week. I've also watched some videos about knitting, and I've learned a lot about knitting in the last week. I haven't really known how to deal with this, how to talk about it, which is why I haven't done it yet. Because, in part because, I host SciShow, and I, a couple of years ago, for the reason that you're thinking, I stepped down from being in charge of that. And when you do that, you give up the power, and you don't want to barge back in sometimes and be like, actually, I need the power back. So can I be in control for a little while, you guys? I know the SciShow team takes critique seriously, and I've watched them enact their policies a bunch of times, and I don't butt in there. It would be bad for me to do that as a person who is not the boss. But clearly, there's a child. Who's that? He's looking at my car. I have not had the chance to, and I think that this was infecting the way that I was talking about it, to understand knitting as the tremendous bonkers technology that it is. And the videos I watched were good and in good faith, and so were almost all of the comments I saw, including the ones that said to show my contrition, I should knit a pair of socks. Even one person suggesting I knit a pair of socks without a pattern. Which, please don't make me do that.
Don't do that.
I think he should do that. That would be a funny video. And also, I should say, when he mentions that he stepped down for the reason you're thinking, that sounds ominous if you don't know. But basically, he had been diagnosed with cancer a few years ago. He is now cancer-free. But yeah, he stepped back from a lot of projects then.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, yeah, fun video. But then I went to the comments, and I have to say I do agree with them. People are frustrated because neither Hank's video nor the comment on the YouTube video address the misogyny part of it, which is, they address some of the specific things, but I think the reason a lot of those errors might have occurred and why no one thought that they stood out falls under the umbrella of misogyny. And it would be so easy to just be like, I acknowledge that as a man explaining knitting through the lens of science and acting like I had just invented that, it's misogynistic. And it would have been so easy to just say that, and he didn't.
Yeah. I think a TikTok comment I did see that I was like, okay, they wrote, I think addressing the implicit misogyny in the video is a better way to apologize to the community than knitting a sock. Now, Kate, I do have to say, I don't think he should knit the sock.
See, I mean, I want him to attempt it because he'll give up after 5 minutes.
Well, yes, and also on top of that, I'm sorry, but it is actually quite unfair. As someone in the community, it is quite unfair to tell someone knit sock, no pattern. That's like GBBO Technical Week, no ingredients, no recipe. I can't even do it. So if he's going to do it, there's going to be 7 toes on that sock. I do not wish that on anyone.
Oh my God, if he gets a single toe in the sock. I love also that in your brain it's toe socks that he's knitting.
I just think he's gonna do the thing where he like knits it around his toe. Remember those like knitting bombers? Yeah. Like that. Don't get into it.
So my final thoughts, I believe the show is acting in good faith.
Yeah.
I think they've taken the feedback. Yes, I agree. Like, while I didn't take initial issue with the video, the fact that the misogyny critique is kind of the biggest one and that they address everything but that is frustrating. It's like, well, now that's a problem because you're not saying anything. And so I would love for them to address that. But for me, so many other things to be mad at. And, and I'm sure as a member of the knitting community, there will be a new thing to be mad at next week. And so this will move along. But all this has done is inspired me to knit, and it's inspired me to call myself a scientist for doing so, now that I know.
Okay, that's the show. We'll be back in your feed on Saturday, so definitely subscribe. That way, you never miss an episode. Leave us a rating and a review in Apple or Spotify, and tell your friends about us. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ICYMI_pod, and you can always drop us a note at ICYMI@slate.com.
ICYMI is produced by Vic Whitley-Berry, Candice Lim, and me, Kate Lindsay. Daisy Rosario is our senior supervising producer, Nia Lobel is Slate's executive producer of podcasts, and Hillary Fry is Slate's editor-in-chief. See you online.
Or knitting a sock without a pattern. This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks Fifth Avenue makes it easy to get creative with your personal style and find the best arrivals for fall. I love going through Saks.com because it is so easy to find new arrivals from my favorite designers, and I get a lot of inspiration for my personal style. With fall coming up, I think it's time for reinvention. I think it's time for a wardrobe refresh. So I've been going on Saks.com because I have my eye on a few Jenny Kane sweaters, and thank God they have them all in stock. But that's my experience with Saks.com. There's so much more to explore based on your personal style and what you're looking for. So this fall, whether you're trying out the latest fashion trends or curating a closet that stands the test of time, Saks has you covered. Whether it's a date night, a vacation, a special occasion, or just lounging in style, Saks helps you find the perfect look for every occasion. If you want shopping to be fun and easy, then head to Saks Fifth Avenue for inspiring ways to elevate your personal style every day.
And Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu? Is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.